If you like this video, why not subscribe?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Frugal Filmmaker, and today we're going to talk about this. No, it's not a rocket launcher, it's not a flamethrower, it's the Eventpod, and it's something that helps you to change setups rapidly when you're shooting events that are beyond your control, such as a wedding reception. We're going to talk about it right now. Okay, so if you've ever done any kind of event shooting, you know that it can be kind of tricky because most events are beyond your control, meaning you don't dictate when certain things happen. Like at a wedding reception, you don't exactly know when they're going to cut the cake, or even if you do, they might start doing it and you're not ready and you have to change setups. So it can be a hassle if all you have is a tripod and a camera. So I wanted to create something, and that's why I came up with this. It will give me just more of a variety of things that I could do with the same piece of gear, so I wasn't having to switch between them. And so I came up with the Eventpod here, and you might recognize some of the things on here that I've built before. You're going to recognize some of them later. But this is essentially a monopod. I got the monopod for $15 at Walmart. And a monopod is an evolution, obviously. If you're trying to move around and do things quickly, a monopod's great for that. But it didn't do enough for me, so I modified this one to allow me to do the things I wanted and give me basically 3 different shooting modes, which was a more steady monopod, a shoulder rig, and also a simple basic crane. So I'm going to go into detail how those different modes work, but before I do that, I think I'd explain the things that I've added to this so that they'll make more sense later when I talk about them. And I'm going to go from cheapest to most expensive, and the first thing I've done here is add some ground clamps. You can get these for about $1.25 at Home Depot, and essentially they're pipe clamps that have a 1/4-20 thread on one end. So you can attach, as you may know, a variety of camera accessories. Use that basic tripod mount, and you can attach a lot of things here. And I've also doubled up some of them, so there's 1/4-20 threads on both sides. I just take 2 clamps and put the 2 threaded sides together, kind of sandwich them together. I also want to point out that I got this idea from Chad Bradle over at Crotoflick when he built his RotoRig. He did this exact same thing on a couple monopods to make his crane. And so I thought that was a great idea, and I thought I would use it on the Eventpod here. So as you can see, I mean, if you can kind of notice there's some padding in between here because I didn't want to just crunch the aluminum tubing with these ground clamps because they're very strong. They're made out of metal, and in order to kind of preserve the monopod, I had this pad underneath, and what that padding is a beer koozie that's been cut up. It's just foam that goes in between the ground clamp and the monopod. And I've got these attached on the bottom of every section of the monopod except the very bottom. So it gives me 4. I've got 4 of these attached to the monopod. You can add more, obviously, but that's what I've done. The second thing that I've done, and the next most expensive thing, is this desktop mic stand that I've added on the bottom here. As you can see, it actually looks pretty good. It looks like it kind of came on the monopod, but I've added this. I took out the little rubber knob on the bottom. I pulled it out. If you take off the rubber knob, you see this kind of metal spike, and then you just take some pliers and twist it and it comes off, and then you have to drill a hole or drill it out and then tap a 3/8 inch thread in there, or you take a 3/8 inch screw and just turn it till it carves out the threads in the plastic, which is what I did. I recommend you get a tap and die set. I recently bought one at Harbor Freight Tools for $10, and that would have been a lot less painful than what I had to do to get this to fit. But these desktop mic stands that are found on eBay for about $6 have a 3/8 inch thread on them, so you have to create a hole in the bottom of the monopod and to give it that room to screw right in. And I did it the hard way. I had to take this thing apart so that I could get a hold of the 3/8 inch thread and then force it in the hole and turn it with a pair of vice grips until it went in. But save yourself pain and get yourself a tap and die set at Harbor Freight or somewhere else, because it saves you a lot of trouble. But that's how I got that in there. And this is nice. It collapses for storage. And you know, they make monopods that have these feet, or bigger feet, larger feet on the bottom here, and you can add. They cost about $20 to add, or you can get a monopod that has it for about $150. I opted for this. It was $6. And the feet aren't huge, but they do allow you to, they do give you the more stability that I was looking for. And you can actually put this thing on the ground, not fully extended, but about two-thirds extended, and let go of it and it won't fall over, and I'll show you that in a second also. Okay, finally, the last thing I did was I added this fluid head. This is the least expensive fluid head of any quality, I think, that you can find. It just screws right into the top of the monopod on a 1/4 thread. Again, popular size, tripod mount. This is the Velbon, what is this, the PH-368 fluid head. And it's a pretty good head. I mean, it's all plastic, so it feels a little cheap, but it only costs about 30 bucks only. Again, it's the most expensive thing on this monopod, but it gives you the ability to create fluid pans and tilts, which is very nice for any kind of filmmaking, and it just makes your product look that much better. So that's all the things that I've added onto this. So also notice that I've slid this pad here back on the monopod, which came down from the top of the monopod, usually where it is, but I slid it down to use as my shoulder rig, and then it rained on me and shrunk, so now it doesn't move at all, but that's why that is back there. Normally you'd be able to move this back and forth, but you can't now. So anyway, those are the basic mods that I've done on this monopod. So let's talk about the 3 different shooting modes. Okay, our first mode is what I'm calling the more steady monopod, and what that basically is I'm going to extend a section of the Eventpod here and put it down. This is going on a stool, not on the ground, but it'll still give you the basic idea. And as you can see, I've set it down and I can let go of it and it will not fall over. Now, it doesn't have a camera on it yet, but I just wanted to kind of show you what I was talking about quickly. And I'm now going to set it up so that I can put a camera on it. Notice I've got a handle right here. This is the camera grip handle that I built in the previous episode. I can give you a link below to that. It's screwed into one of the 1/4 20 mounts on the monopod, and I'm now going to lock everything down so I can get my camera, which is attached to my Frugal Fattener, and this was just basically a camera grip that gives me a larger handhold on my tiny Sony NEX5N right here. I discovered that the Fattener actually has a tripod mount right here so that I can put in the Velbon's quick release plate and go ahead and mount it right to the Eventpod. So again, I'm hands-free. I wouldn't turn my back, as I said before. Actually, I didn't say that before, but previous take, I said that I can now, be hands-free from the camera, and I can get a battery or answer the phone or whatever, and it's not going to fall over on me. But I wouldn't turn my back on this because it will fall over if somebody bumps into it or a wind gust comes along and knocks it. So the idea is just to give you those hands-free moments, and also just to give it more stability on the bottom. And you have a grip here, and you have your other hand on the tripod arm, or the arm, because this isn't a tripod, the Eventpod arm, and get those fluid panning and tilt shots that you wanted. Also, because I've got these weights on the bottom right here, it also gives the lower center of gravity, which helps it to become more stable toward the bottom. These also come in handy in another mode that I'm going to show you in a minute, but that's also good for it. Okay, so the next mode is the shoulder rig mode, and let's say you want to change modes. Here I've got it set up in the more steady monopod mode, and now I want to change it quickly into the shoulder rig mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse this section here by opening a collar and bringing that in, and then I'm going to have to change, let's see, both my pan and tilt head so that it comes back like so. And I've got these little marks so I can line them up on the handles quickly, and then lock everything down. And now it's ready for shoulder rig mode. I've got this pad right here, which I mentioned previously. I think that I moved back from the neck. I can just set it right there on my shoulder. And I might need to obviously change a few things to get it right. But once it's done and the lens cap is off in a normal situation, now I've got a shoulder rig. As you can see, I've got the 2 handles mounted front here so I can have something to grab onto, and then I have control over the lens, as well as one behind me so that I know exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I don't go too far and start scraping up my back with these ground clamp screws here. So the counterweights also come in handy now because they're acting as counterweights to the camera, and even though they're not heavier than the camera, which they could be, but they're not in my case, I can actually pull them out a little bit, use leverage to give myself a little more weight in the back. So that's shoulder rig mode, and as you can see, it didn't take me long to get there from more steady monopod mode. It probably took me like 10-15 seconds, 20 seconds maybe. Now I can shoot like this as long as I want. If I needed to go back to monopod mode, it would go rather quickly. Okay, so our final mode is crane mode, and like we've had before, I've got things set up here for shoulder rig mode, and if I want to do make it into a crane, all I have to do is really extend out a couple lengths, as many of these as I want. And I also have to point the camera downward, kind of like it is in more steady monopod mode. Pop the screen up so I can see it. This is a little tougher screen. Some other cameras rotate their screens a little better than this one, but I still will be able to see it. So let's say I want to get some length here. Now I can basically hold this over the crowd. Let's say if it's a dance or something, and give yourself kind of a quick crane shot if you need to. And then if you need to go back to shoulder rig mode or any other mode, all you're doing is basically releasing the collars, collapsing the monopod, and getting things back the way you had them before. It doesn't take too long. You just kind of have to practice and know what you're doing in any given situation. And there you go. Now we're back to shoulder rig mode without too much effort, and you can get whatever shot you need in this mode. So that's the Eventpod. All these modifications are pretty simple, as you may have noticed. If you were to do every single one of these, it would probably cost you over $100, but you don't have to. You can just take the ones that you really like and run with it. This is open source. Anybody can do this stuff. It doesn't take any kind of super extended knowledge. You just have to put in the effort and spend a teeny bit of money, and you'll get something that will hopefully help you in events. Obviously, with anything else, be careful. The most expensive thing on this rig is obviously your camera. You want to take care of that, so be careful when using something like this or any kind of a rig so that you don't break your camera, because then the amount of money you save isn't worth anything. So be careful, have fun shooting those events. Good luck, and thanks for watching. It's the Eventpod, and it's something that allows you to change setups rapidly when you're shooting events that are beyond your control. Oh man.